I want people to hear exactly what Hawk was saying concerning Scott Galloway, okay? Because Scott Galloway has put out information basically saying that men are they're committing suicide. In the morgue, there's out of 5 people committing suicide, 4 of them are men. But what Hawk is doing in this video is showing the contradiction because even though men are committing suicide in a higher rate, he's showing examples of where men have murdered their spouses, murdered their significant other, murdered the person they're dating, and then turned the gun on themselves or committed suicide. So this is what he's trying to point out. Because Scott Galloway has been trying to blame women for men committing suicide, okay? Blaming women for all their woes. Women have for eons of time, and it's really getting so fucking annoying. Eve in the Bible was said to have been blamed for what Adam had done. The story's all bullshit anyways, but I'll go with the story that people do in main churches, and that is they're saying that because she ate of the fruit, it caused Adam to sin. And that whole mentality of blaming women for all of the woes of the world, it's getting very fucking old. And I mean old. It's been old. It's ancient ideas, and it's annoying. Okay, let's hear what he actually says.
And it reminded me of a lot of things. You know, the stories, the endless stories that I heard from my mom. You know, she went to law school at night when I went to high school. I graduated from high school in 86. She graduated from law school in 87 and then began the practice of law, and she had done some clerking. And the endless number of incredibly misogynistic, sexist stories that she told me about experiences that she had. And the things that I've heard from my friend Shahana going back 25 years.
I'm 57, and I have heard and experienced some of the worst things. And I know of at least 5 women personally in my realm who have either been murdered by their significant others or almost murdered, and spent 6 months recovering in a hospital after one woman had to have her fucking cranium taken off of her brain to lessen the swelling or to keep the swelling down. And then after the swelling was down, after 3 months or more in the hospital, put her cranium back on, her skull cap back on her head. And I know this woman personally. And that same man she was married to murdered her daughter because he had been molesting her daughter. CPS was involved, and he murdered her daughter so she couldn't testify. And the son was 12 years old. The daughter was 14. The son was 12 years old, and he found where they were at because they were in hiding. And he stabbed the son so many times. He was in the same hospital with his mother, fighting for his life for 6 months because he tried to protect his sister from their dad. But let's continue. I mean, I'm going to go into some things. They're going to be graphic, and Big J already knows because he made this video and it really got under my skin. And he wouldn't let me get on his panel to discuss it. Because I'm very passionate about this, because we do not have the equality of safety equality for women. We just don't. I remember working in a casino and having men come up to me and grab me. I'm working on the casino floor and have come up and just grab me by my fucking ass, full hands full, grabbing my ass. And me running up to the person and literally seeing red and telling the guy that I went off on him and said, if you ever fucking try to do some shit like that again in this casino, I said, I'll fucking beat you down. And I didn't want to lose my job. I had just had a baby. I had a baby and I had a daughter that was 5 years old. But to be fucking sexually accosted, and this was in the 80s and 90s, to be sexually accosted and fucking security not do shit about it, because that was the good old boys time and it was okay to do that shit. And we're living in a time where men want to bring that kind of assaulting back and make it okay and make it legal. Get the fuck out of here. Let's continue.
The things that I've heard from my friend Kim and so many other, really close friends of mine who are attorneys who are also women. And then, there was a little bit of that today, and it was just like, it's November 2025. We still fucking doing this? Or seriously? I mean, I'm a fucking caveman, and I was picking up on this shit. And it was just like, what the fuck, man? It's just old white men who are gatekeeping so many things.
Yeah.
Who just want to fucking jack each other off to their
violence against women and making it allowable again.
And
that's their idea of making America great
today,
again.
There was one panel that I saw was great, but it's just like, how long are we going to fucking do this, man? And, so I got through all that stuff today. I was really tired. I got home about 20 minutes ago. And so I opened up TikTok. And what the fuck do I see? I see Scott Galloway being interviewed by Ben Stiller. I think it's in Manhattan. It's some 92nd Street, whatever. And Ben Stiller, in his infinite wisdom, asked Scott Galloway the following question. Why is it so controversial to talk about mentoring young men? Let's just start with that.
Hold on.
So nice under my jeans.
Start with that. I'm not aware of anywhere, any place, any time, any context where it's controversial to talk about mentoring young men. I think what Ben Stiller meant to ask was, why is it so controversial to blame young?
And why have men like this that are okay with fucking accosting women, raping little girls, raping little boys, killing them? Where are they the type of person that should fucking be mentoring men? Listen, I'm the type of person that believes in the divinity of God and the divine man and the divine woman, and I know that there are divine men that exist. I witness them, I have seen them, but I also know there's a flip side of very brutalizing mentality when it comes from a patriarchy that we are under right now, and they are not divine. There is nothing divinely connected about these men unto God or the universe or any of that, right? So you want men like this to be mentoring other men? Get the fuck out of here.
Women for all of young men's problems in November of 2025. Young men who are red pilling themselves, who aren't going to college, who want to play video games for 27 hours a day, and somehow that's the fault of young women. I think would be a more accurate representation of the question that Ben Stiller was asking Scott Galloway. Scott Galloway's initial response, the first words out of his mouth were, if you go into a morgue and there are 5 people who died from suicide, 4 of them would be men. And I'm just like, I am fucking sick to death of this Scott Galloway shit. He correctly identifies the problem. He incorrectly identifies the causes. He incorrectly identifies the solutions. And it just reminds me,
How convenient.
that response, if you go into a morgue and there are 5 people who died by suicide, 4 of them are men. That's probably true. Whose fault is that? And I'm reminded of the first. So next week is my last week as a practicing trial attorney. And his response reminded me of the first 3 years of my practice as a trial attorney. Fuck, I don't even know how long. I mean, it was 27 years ago. And I graduated from law school. I moved to Mansfield, Ohio. I had a fiance. I bought a house. I was working with my mom, who had her own law firm. And my mom did like 80% family law. And during those first 3 years, it happened on almost an annual basis. A woman who we were representing in a divorce, who was in a domestic violence situation, who had gotten a restraining order against her husband, was murdered by her husband.
Mm-hmm.
How many of those people in that morgue are fucking women, Scott, who had been murdered by their partners, boyfriends,
That part
or
right
husbands? The number one cause of death for women in the United States of America while they are pregnant is being murdered by their partner, spouse, or their husband, the father of their baby. One woman, her husband snuck into her house while she was at work. He disconnected all the gas lines and he turned off her power, and he left out candles and matches on her countertop so that when she got home, tried to turn on the lights and there was no power, and she fucking lit a match to light a candle.
That's fucking diabolical.
Her entire home exploded, her along with it, and she was killed. Another guy, we represented his wife, and she had a restraining order against him. He beat her to death in a parking lot with a tire iron in front of their 2 children. The third one, the husband and wife were both corrections officers in Mansfield, Ohio. They had 5 children. The oldest was 10. The husband had domestic violence charges pending against him. He had to surrender all of his firearms. That was causing him some difficulty at work. He borrowed a semi-automatic 9mm handgun from a friend of his who was a sheriff's deputy who knew that he had a domestic violence restraining order against him and had previously been ordered to give up all of his handguns. And then the husband, went to their family home where he was not allowed to be because of that restraining order, and hid in the bushes around the corner from the front porch. And when the wife came home from picking up their 5 children under the age of 10 from school, he jumped out from the bushes, came running around, and shot her multiple times in the head, killing her in front of their 5 children. He then put the barrel of that semi-automatic 9mm handgun in his own mouth and blew out the back of his own head, and they had a joint funeral that all 5 children attended. I was there. If you go into a morgue, there are 5 people who died by suicide, and 4 of them are men. How many dead women are in that morgue, Scott?
Exactly.
And how many of those dead women were murdered by their partner, boyfriend, or husband?
Introducing the only prescription hair
So, this is what I've got to say to Big J. I think that you got to stop having dysfunctional men trying to mentor young men. Charlie Kirk was not an example of a good man to mentor young men. Trump is definitely not an example of a mentor for men, young men. And I can go on and on and on and on and on and on about all the men who are not good examples to mentor. But what I want to get back to is the fact that the blame against women concerning all of their issues, it's a problem. It's a problem. And he pointed out his examples. I can tell you so many examples of women being violated. I had a friend that was at a bus stop and she was raped behind the seat of the bus stop and bushes. Okay? I could go on and on and on and on and on about why women don't want to talk to men when they're walking down the street. They don't want to address them. They don't want to do any of that. Because I know every single one of those women, and the women that get on YouTube and are talking about those men and how they personally know women who have been violated and or murdered. They have been violated. And that is not important, apparently, for our current governing system. They don't care because, I mean, for God's sake, we've got a convicted rapist in the fucking White House, among other things he's doing. So while he said, what are the root causes that make men kill themselves because it's not women, women already know the root causes of why they're being murdered and who's murdering them. So when you made the comment of men bad, women good, that was so disingenuous, Big J. And you know it. I don't know what pity party you're feeling right now for you to say that. But that's not the theme of the information that's being given. And that is definitely not what Hawk was saying. But apparently that's what you're feeling. But there are issues and there are problems. And women they have a reason to be scared of men. They really, really do. Not all men. Definitely not all men. There are a lot of good men in the world. But there's a lot of bad men as well. There are a lot of men that need good mentoring, yeah. Or have needed it when they were young kids. They needed it. But where's the examples, Big J? Can you give me the examples of who you personally think should be mentoring these young men? I just need to know, because I hear you over and over and over and over on your channel, which I don't even come to when you're going against the manosphere. It's an old song. It's an old song. Because you yourself are not giving any fucking answers. You're not giving any resolution, anything that can actually solve the problem. And your idea of kicking them off social media is not going to help. Censoring them is not going to help, because they'll go underground and they'll keep spewing the fucking energy that they're spewing. And I haven't really heard you put anything out there that is going to solve the problem. How are you going to, do you have solutions to redirect young men and their ideology? I'm curious. who you personally think is a good role model for young men as a man. So I'm throwing it back at you. Who do you consider, because Galloway is not a fucking good example. I don't know why you're defending this white man. It's all about the Benjamins for these people. They all they do is sit here and talk about this shit in order to make money. They don't really fucking care about America. They don't care about the young men, and they damn sure don't care about women. So what's the solution? I'm curious. I'd like to hear the solution. You didn't let me on your panel because you didn't want to have me say anything against what you were saying. So I'm on my own fucking channel, and here I am.